People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Hey folks, welcome to a special episode of The Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I am talking with the one and only Mr. Eddie Deezen. He is the star of many films that I'm sure you've seen: Grease, Midnight Madness, Surf 2, the end of the trilogy. So many great titles. If you don't recognize the name, you're definitely going to recognize the voice and that personality. He is one of a kind. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the interview. I am so curious about the Eddie Deezen origin story. Can you tell me a little bit about you growing up and how you got into show business?
I was born in 1957. I'm going to be 66 next week, in fact, Mike. I was born in a little town called Cumberland, Maryland. I grew up in a little Jewish family. A father and mother had an older brother, and I was in trouble from my earliest days. I was always getting into trouble in school. In kindergarten, my earliest days, they put me out on the steps. They separate me from the other kids because I was always creating trouble. Finger paints, I'd always put it on my face, pretend I was Al Jolson or whatever, and do crazy stuff. And I was always in trouble, always going to the principal's office, always getting detention. I remember that, but I wasn't really a bad kid. I wasn't a mean kid. I didn't hurt the other kids, but I was always getting into trouble. My earliest influence, I loved the Three Stooges. Curly was my hero. Supreme hero was Jerry Lewis, of course, from the early days. I saw the first movie with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. I thought they reissued Partners, I remember. And I saw them, and I was fascinated by them, and asked my Uncle Harvey, I said, these guys are great. Who are they? And he goes, they're Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. And then he goes, in other words, he meant they split. He pulled his hands together and he made this out. He meant they split. And I didn't understand how could two men split. I didn't get like they're Siamese twins. He was telling me Dean Martin and Jerry split up. He was trying to describe it to me. But Jerry was an early hero. Daffy Duck, Mike, was an early hero of mine. And I loved him. I patted my character after Daffy Duck. If you look at it, I go, listen, you, I'll take care of you. I put my finger in the air like Daffy Duck, the angry Daffy Duck. So I patted a lot after him. And I was always the class clown. So I would wear a water faucet on my head. I had this water faucet I bought. It had a suction rubber thing on. And I'd stick it in my head and I'd turn on it, would pour water out. So look, water would come out of my head. Stuff like that.
I know you're a huge Beatles fan. When did you first run across them? What was your experience hearing the Beatles the first time?
Typical American. I remember the Friday they came to America. It was Friday, February 7, 1964. I clearly remember Mike sitting in the car. And I remember one of them named George Harrison. I remember saying that we were talking about this new thing, the Beatles. I remember watching them on the Ed Sullivan Show. We went to see A Hard Day's Night. My favorite movie that year was July 7th to July 6th it premiered. We went to see it, and then we saw Help the next year. And I remember this was a little small town in Cumberland. It was like 20,000 or 30,000 people. Like it's a little town like Mayberry. And there was screaming all through it. You couldn't hear the dialogue. It started from the beginning of the movie to the very end, an hour and a half. Girls screaming all the way through, and you just sit there and you'd watch the Beatles move, and as they see their lips move, but no words would come out. It was like no movies I've ever seen from that day on. And I just worshiped them. I loved their music. We bought the records. I remember we had 8 days a week. We had I Feel Fine. She Loves You, of course. I Want to Hold Your Hand. And little did I realize, I would be playing a Beatles, but I played myself in I Want to Hold Your Hand. Box Neck is the first song. I played a Beatles fanatic. I basically played myself.
So tell me about your first foray into show business. I mean, was stand-up your way in?
There were a lot of different things, and that was the first thing. There's a lot of different things. The earliest I remember was I was in kindergarten. We danced around the maypole. At our graduation ceremony, my brother Ricky is 3 years older than me. He was in kindergarten. He graduated. And at graduation, there were these streamers would come down. They had this thing that would spin around. And it was called Dancing Around the Maypole. You skip around like this. It was called Dancing Around the Maypole. And I thought, that's really cool. I want to do that. And then 3 years later, my kindergarten graduation, I danced around the maypole. I was about 6 years old when we danced around the maypole. That was my first time in front of people. I remember my first thing in professional showbiz, there was a comedian, I don't know, called Frankie Fontaine. He used to be on the Jackie Gleason show. He played a drunk. He goes, you can Google him, named Frankie Fontaine. But I was in Atlantic City at the Steel Pier, and Frankie Fontaine was appearing. I was probably about 14, and he called me up on stage. I was like in the second row, and he called me up and another guy. And we were his ventriloquist dummies. It's ironic because, I played a ventriloquist in 1941, Spielberg's film. But I played a ventriloquist dummy. That was the first thing I did in showbiz. And he said, I'm just going to talk. All you do is, he whispered to us. He goes, I'm going to pat you on the back. What I do, move your lip. And he said, you'll be Charlie, you'll be Irving. I think I was Charlie, the other guy was Irving. And he would go, "Hey, Charlie, how are you?" And then he'd pat me on the back and he'd go, and I would to the audience scream with laughter. Go, "Hey, Irving," and he patted me, tap, and the audience screamed with laughter. Now, after the show, I went out, I wandered out, I lost my family. I was like in a daze. What's this applause thing? A whole crowd applauded me, the whole room. I went out and these fans crowded around me. So, what is this? And there were girls there. I've loved girls since I was 6. And there were these girls around me. This is pretty cool, man. So that kind of put the germ in my head. Show business is pretty cool. That was my first appearance on an actual stage. We have a religion called Purim. I remember early on we had a Purim play, and Haman is the bad guy in Purim. He's like the villain guy. He's the villain that's the bad guy in Purim. And I played Haman's horse. Haman was there, and they said, "You played Haman's horse." So I got there, and I started bucking up and running around the room crazy. So I was crazy from the earliest days. And the kids were all breaking up laughing. This is when I was about 10 years old. I played Haman's horse in Temple. That was another thing I did early in showbiz. Stuff like that.
Did you just say, okay, I love this applause thing. I'm going to do anything I can to get more of it?
Yeah, I think that set the germ in my head, this applaud. And also, to be honest, I couldn't really do anything else. Like, I didn't have much talent. Dad had me work. Dad ran a jewelry store in Cumberland called Ray's Jewelers, and I fell asleep at a display window. I was tired one day, and I went in the display window when I took a nap. I fell asleep. And Dad went crazy. "That's Christ, I think you're dead in there." And my dad had a bad temper, and he fired me, and that was the last time I worked there. And then Dad offered to buy me a Dairy Queen. When it was around time to graduate, he said, "I'll buy you a Dairy Queen." With Dairy Queen for sale, I said, "You can run it." And I didn't want to run a Dairy Queen, so Dad said, "Tell you what, go to Hollywood, try your luck in showbiz. I'll send you $400 a month." So Dad would send me $400 every month. He was a very kind, generous man, my dad. And that kept me going. In those days, it was 1975, 76. My rent was like $125 a month. Food was cheap. So that kept me going every month.
So what were some of those early gigs like for you? How did you make your start out there?
I worked at the Comedy Store, the famous nightclub. Robin Williams, Rodney Dangerfield, Jimmy Walker, all these guys, Dave Kaplan, they all worked there. And I remember the first night we went in, my friend Mike and I, he came to Hollywood with me for the first couple of weeks. And I think he stayed for 2 weeks, then he left me alone. But he was there. We went to the Comedy Store and we saw Jimmy Walker, and I was terrified. Jimmy Walker was the comedian at that time, 1975. He was JJ from Good Times. We were in the front row at the Comedy Store, and Jimmy Walker was there, and I was scared what heck was. I was scared, but he left us alone, luckily. And then little did I know, I made my debut at the Comedy Store January 26, 1976. I got really big laughs in the LA Comedy Store. And then I did another performance there. The next week I got big laughs. Then Mitzi, who's the owner, said, "Why don't you try our Westwood Comedy Store?" So I did, and I went to the Westwood Comedy Store. And Mike, I did was my first time I'd really bombed in showbiz. I told the jokes and they got hardly any laughs. And then I realized I didn't really like doing stand-up. It was hard for me to memorize routines. Even in those days, Mike, I needed index cards. I would read off cue cards. I would read my whole routine off cue cards. I'd stand there and read them.
What were your gags like back then?
They would applaud. Okay, they go, da-da-da-da. Here's our next comic, the master ceremony. Here's the next comic, Eddie Deezen. And then there's applause. And they go, "Sure, but we respect me in the morning." That was my opening joke. That was supposed to be funny, Mike. But this is how dated the routine was. They come up with a new stamp with Richard Nixon's picture on it, but it didn't work. Everybody spit on the wrong side. That was my big joke. So you could see why I tanked, Mike. Stand-up wasn't made for me, but there were jokes like that. When I added a little routine, it was like my little 3 or 5 minute routine, and I did that. Then my next thing was that at the end of 1976, November 13th, 1976, I did the Gong Show, my TV. I was on that, and it got gonged by Paul Williams. I did my routine, and the crowd liked me, but Paul Williams gonged me. Yeah, now cut to that. I did the Gong Show that. Now cut to 45 years later. I go to an audition or a gig. Paul Williams is there. Paul was there. "Mr. Williams, hi, I'm Eddie Deezen. I was on the Gong Show. Do you remember you gonged me?" And I'm like, he apologized. "Eddie, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." "What do you mean? Forgive me. I'm so sorry, God. You please give me your forgiveness." He was literally pleading with me. "Mr. Williams, please, you gonged me with the comedy show. It's no big deal." I said, "Please don't take it so serious. I didn't mind at all. You gonged me. It was funny." He goes, "Well, you got to understand, I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous," he said. "We have to apologize to anybody we may have hurt in our lives." So he was very sincere. He was an alcoholic. He was an Alcoholics Anonymous. And I made sure I really accepted. I go, "Mr. Williams, you are absolved. You're forgiven. Don't worry. You didn't hurt me at all. Please forgive yourself." And he was forgiven. But he was really giving me a solemn apology.
So that was 76, and by 77, you're in Greece.
Most people start their careers in low-budget B movies, turkeys. But I started with a classic. I lucked out. It's got to be the most popular musical of all time. I think it's maybe one of the 5 or 10 most popular movies of all time. It has to be, from the people I talk to. Grease, my favorite film. I watched it 100 times. Every women I've talked to broke their tapes of Grease. They had tapes of Grease. They played it so many times they broke them. I watched that every day when I was growing up, and it's just the most popular movie ever made. It's got to be out there. Maybe Star Wars would be out there. I'm not sure the others, but Grease is up there. But yeah, I started out at the top. Now, my part was very small, and I'm a bit player. But just to be a part in that, I always say it's like the guys in Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind, this big classic. And there's the battlefield scene. All these corpses. There's that big battlefield scene after the war. They show all these corpses dead on the field. Every one of those corpses were actors. Those were guys who were actors. So they probably bragged the rest of their life to go, I'm in Gone with the Wind with Clark Gable. I was in Gone with the Wind. That was their big thing. So I'm kind of like that in Grease. I played this little bit part, but it's this hugely classic movie.
Yeah, I can't believe the legs on this and just that it's been with us. I think it's having its 45th anniversary this year, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, and it's still so fresh. Stevie and I watched it, Mike, like about 2 weeks ago, and it's still so fresh. The songs are so wonderful. It's the ultimate feel-good film. And I watched it, and I felt really good. It's a feel-good movie. If you're down in the dumps, if you're depressed, try watching Grease. I don't think it can hurt. I think it'll make you feel a little bit happier. It's such a joyous movie.
So how did you get cast as Richard Ringo Klaus in I Want to Hold Your Hand?
With some kind of a call, I forget. Steve and I don't remember the audience, but Bob Zemeckis was doing his first film. It was the first film Steven Spielberg ever produced. But I remember seeing Steven. Now, I saw him on the set a lot, but yeah, the casting was Sally Dennison was the casting director. Sazi Stokes was there. Bob Zemeckis was there, and they assisted Bob Gale. They co-wrote it. That was the film, Mike, I auditioned for the most times. I had to audition 9 times for that movie. And they later told me Bob Gale was laughing so hard at me, he said he was actually crying. He laughed so hard. I guess some people get along with it, hit their buttons, and I was that way with Bob Zemeckis. Bob Zemeckis is still to this day the best director I've ever worked with. He's fantastic. He's wonderful. And we did it. And yeah, it was just a joyous shoot. It was great. And we did a promotional tour in New York. And they put us up in the Plaza Hotel. Guess what? In the Beatles suite. We got to live in the Beatles suite and got to stay there. Steven Spielberg came with us. He was there. Steven took us out to lunch. We're eating at Sardi's or the Stage Deli or something. But Steven was there. I remember he was at the head of the table. And he treated us all lunch. It was really cool. Now, we were making the movie. Steven and I would kibitz a lot. We talked a lot and chat on the set. He was just a great guy. And I remember I made up the one line. Now, this is a mild joke now, but I think I was the first one to use it because I think this joke's been recycled in different ways. But there's the one line the policeman breaks in the room where I have the laugh. And he goes, now I got you, little shit. And I go, who are you calling little? And I said that to Steven. I go, I'm just like that. Steven broke up loud. He goes, look, Eddie's going to use this joke, and I use that. Now, there's been different variations on that joke where they get upset at the wrong part. Eddie, you little bastard. Who are you calling little? But I think I'm the first one to use that joke, and it's been reset. Steven liked that joke. He laughed. And I was good friends with Steven on, we would just talk. He would just hang on the set with us. Him and Bob were like best friends, and he was kind of like Bob's mentor. And Bob was just a fabulous director. He was a joy to work with. Wendy Jo Sperber was still the best comedy partner I ever had. She was like Lou Costello. She was like Lou Costello to my Bud Abbott. She was so wonderful. She left way too soon.
That role seems custom made for you because you were such a Beatles fan from the get-go.
I know. It's like funny. It's almost, you're right. Like they'd written that role for me. Nothing could have been more perfect. And I got that. You know what, Mike? I swear to God, to this day, that's the best role I ever played. That's the best thing I ever did. That's the closest I ever got to my comedy, what I wanted to do in a film. Great direction, great dialogue, and just getting across the character I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a great movie, and it still holds up. You talked about the longevity of Grease, the longevity of I Want to Hold Your Hand. I swear it just gets better every single year.
I'll tell you a great story, Mike. Paul McCartney was interviewed by my old friend Joe Pope. Joe did a magazine called Strawberry Fields Forever. It was a Beatles magazine. Now, sadly, Joe died of AIDS later on, but he died years ago. But he was interviewed with Paul McCartney. And he told me he'd asked Paul McCartney, you ever see a movie called I Want to Hold Your Hand? And Paul McCartney, he did an impression. Paul McCartney goes, and the answer come back. And the answer come back. Paul McCartney friggin' did me. He imitated me. So that's one of the greatest compliments in my life. But Paul did see it. George saw it. George said it was a good historical film. Now, Ringo, I've heard 2 stories. Ringo, I heard, didn't like it. He said, I can't believe Steven Spielberg got himself involved with this film. He said something derogatory. But I also heard a story that they screened it for Paul and Ringo both, and they both liked it. So I don't know about Ringo. And John, I never found it. John could have seen it. He wasn't doing much. He was retired at those years. So I'm hoping he saw it in New York, but I never heard whether John saw it or not. But that was like one of the first Beatles films. Remember, Beatles films are pretty frequent now. They're like almost a new one every year. But that was one of the first Beatles films.
But I love the way that he shot the Beatles, that whole thing with the monitor and the camera and then having the body doubles out of focus in the background. That was so clever.
Yes, Bob Zemeckis was ahead of his time. And Mike, when we were doing Polar Express, I was talking to Tom Hanks. And I said, did you ever see one up over here? We were talking about it or something. And he said, I love the way he did those scenes with the Beatles. He said, I really love that, that thing with did the Beatles where they faked that they didn't see their face. He liked that. And just to get back to him at the Grease, another thing Tom said, he said, I love he was like a little kid. We'll talk about it later when we get into Polar Express. But he goes, I love the end of Grease where they fly off and they're all waving to you. He's like a little kid talking about, he liked the last scene. I said, did you see Grease? He said, I love that last scene where Danny and Sandy go flying up in the car into the sky.
Can you tell me, what was it like working with Murray Hamilton on 1941?
Murray was a wonderful, nice man. He was a very kind man. At that time, I hadn't seen Jaws. Now, later I found it's one of my favorite movies, but I didn't see it. We would have great talks up there, Mike. He had us up, wakes it up, and we were like 30 or 40 feet up in the air. So it was a huge Ferris wheel. And Murray and I would chat. And every day we'd have talks. He'd talk about life and religion and politics and everything. But I didn't talk about Jaws. I was so ignorant. I was like 20 and I hadn't seen Jaws. Now, it's a movie everybody's seen, but I didn't see it at that time. But he was a wonderful guy. He was a chronic smoker. And he would come down. Steven had an oxygen tank for him. And periodically, Steven would let us down and he would take an oxygen. He literally couldn't breathe up there. He was trouble grasping for breath up there on that Ferris wheel. Yeah. Anyway, I'll tell you the great story. We were on the Ferris wheel, Mike, and Steven was whipping us around. The scene where the Ferris wheel rolls off the pier. And Steven was whipping us around really fast, whipping us around that Ferris wheel. And I started to get nauseous. I got motion sickness. And I go down to Steven, I'm sick. He goes, look, tell you what, have my secretary take you to my dressing room. Lay down. So his secretary took me to the dressing room. He said, lay down at Steven's cot. So I crawled over on my hands and knees into the cot and I lay down. Then I got sick again. I'm feeling really nauseous. I crawled to the toilet in my hands and knees and I threw up. And I realized, oh my God, the significance. I just threw up in Steven Spielberg's toilet. And to this day, it's one of the highlights of my career.
I talked about how the role of Ringo seemed custom made for you, but did I read that Midnight Madness, that role of Wesley, was actually written just for you?
That's interesting. If it was, I wasn't sure that, or I forgot. Maybe it was, because it was the perfect role for me. Maybe it was. I don't know. That was the only time I worked with two directors. Michael Nankin and David Wester were co-directors. I don't know if they ever did anything else after that movie, but that was my unhappy issue. But it was a funny film. I think it's one of my better films. Yeah, there was. I won't get into names, but there were a couple actors and a couple people in the crew that weren't so nice. They were pretty mean people, and I just didn't like it. Now the other side of the coin, it was Michael J. Fox's first film, and he was a delight. Michael and I would have lunch together and talk about the Twilight Zone every day. And we go, I had a Super Bowl, I bring in a big Super Bowl. And we go to this wall at Disney City, like a brick wall, and we play handball together. He was a delight. Maggie Roswell from The Simpsons was my girlfriend, and she was wonderful. I loved her. And that was Pee Wee Herman's film. And I always thought Pee Wee kind of patterned his character off me. Pee Wee Herman's suit, if you look at it, it's my exact suit from Grease. And he did his first film with me. So I always tell you, I think Pee Wee he's a nice guy. He gave me credit. I think he did say Eddie Deezen was part of the influence of the Pee Wee Herman character. So he was a great guy. Yeah, that was a fun film. There were a lot of fun times in it.
Did you have to shoot that whole thing at night?
Pretty much. It was, yeah, more night shoots than I ever remember. I remember we shot the Bonaventure Hotel in L.A., all over L.A., different locations. But yeah, that was like pretty much night shoots all the way. I think they were going to call it the Great All-Nighter, in fact. It was like an all-night shoot. But they changed it to Midnight Madness. I don't know. And I don't think it did that good at the box office. Maybe they should have called it the Great All-Nighter. Maybe it would have done better.
I seem to remember that was originally supposed to be a Disney film and they separated from it because I think Ron Miller actually produced it.
Exactly. It was the middle ground, Mike. It was too risque to be a Disney film, and it wasn't raunchy enough to be PG. So it didn't catch a crowd. It didn't get the Disney fans. It didn't get the Animal House crowd. It was like in the middle there. But there's a couple risque lines. I have Maggie Roswell on my moped at the end. Boy, it's like having one of these mean machines between your legs. And that was, for Disney, that's a fairly risque line. That's a pretty raunchy line. We had little moments like that in the movie.
The thing that gets me about Midnight Madness is that with every single one of those groups of contestants, like you get to know some of the people that are in the groups, especially like Stephen First's group, you get to really know them. David Naughton's group, you get to know them. But with your group, it's basically you and three other guys that just look like you and do everything that you do.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Maybe you're right. Yeah. I love David Naughton. He was great to work with. And I love Stephen First. He was a joy to work with. I love Stephen. He left us too soon. Stephen's such a talented guy. He'll be immortal from Animal House always.
Were there ever directors that told you, hey, Eddie, you need to take it back? Because I think that the more outrageous you are and the more like spastic you are, better the role is for you.
That's how I feel. Mike. But some will say, you know what I get the most is they'll say, slow down. Because talk very fast. Listen, I went to the store and let's say slow down again. And then when I try to sit down, that doesn't sound right because I naturally do talk fast. That's just the way I talk. But I don't remember particularly all the films I've done and all the TV work. I don't remember them saying brain down because I think when they hire me, they know my shtick. I'm very physical. I love doing physical comedy. They know my shtick. The direction I get the most is slow down, they'll say. And I will try to sit down. I go, listen, you, I'll take care of you. And I'll slow down. Listen, you, I'll take care of you. And it doesn't sound like me if I talk real slow. I don't know if people always question I get asked, they go, are you from New York? Because I guess New Yorkers talk fast. I just avoid talk fast.
I love that back and forth between you and Maury Chaykin and War Games where he's like trying to put his foot on you a little bit and you're just no regard. I love it.
He was a great guy. Great guy. I came on the set. By the way, Maury's another. By the way, be reminded, this is the sad part of this wonderful podcast. All these people that have left us too soon, but Maury's another one who left us too soon. He was a great comedy guy. But anyway, we were on the set, and I was a little bit arrogant. I was working a lot this time when I came on. Maury and I were talking before we did our thing. I go, yeah, it's just another job. And Maury goes, he put me in my place. It's important to me. He said something like that, but he really put me in my place. He got my ethics there. And I go, you know what? You're right. Be professional. And then Maury came up with a great line. He goes, look, in this scene, I'm going to call you Mr. Potato Head. And I broke up and goes, that's great, dude. He made that. It wasn't up in the script. The script was without that. And that made the scene. Mr. Potato Head. And to this day, Mike, people will say, hey, Mr. Potato Head. And they go, were you Mr. Potato Head? I'll get rest of that. People will call me that. That made the scene. He was great. And with Matthew Roberts' first film, I worked one day on War Games. Matthew and I were there, and we drove in. I got picked up first. I was in the front seat. Then we picked up Matthew and his family. He was in the back seat. And I remember Matthew and I were talking, and he talked about his father, James Broderick, who had just recently passed away. And I looked back, and he had tears in his eyes. It was so sweet. But Mike, he was like a little kid, Matthew. He was, what was he, like 17 or 18 when we did it? But he had tears in his eyes, like a little kid about his father, losing his father. And I'll never forget that. And the cool thing about War Games is Ronald Reagan screened the film in the White House. I don't know if you know this story, but he screened the film in the White House. This is 100% true. And he literally changed the national security system of the United States because of that movie. He saw the film and he thought that somebody, I guess Russia at that time was our big enemy. He thought maybe Russia could tap into our security system and attack us or something. But he changed our security system because of War Games. So it has a little place in history. My director was Marty Brest, who later, Marty Brest was fired after Marty Brest directed 12 different scenes in it. Mine might have been last, but mine was one of the 12. And then they fired Marty Brest. They figured he didn't like his dailies. And they hired John Badham. But John Badham watched the scenes, and mine was the only one he kept. He liked my scene, and he said, leave that in the movie. So mine is the only one in the War Games that's not directed by John Badham. It's directed by Marty Brest. Marty Brest did Beverly Hills Cop the next year. So he made a name for himself. So I'm glad he did good, because he was a really nice director.
He's directed so many great things. And with the role of Menlo Schwartzer in Surf 2, the end of the trilogy, would you consider that your biggest role? Is that the movie that you have the most screen time?
I had two, Mike. I think I had top billing. Maybe three, but I was top billed in that one, Surf 2. And I was top billed in one called Mob Boss. We'll talk about that later with Morgan Fairchild. And I think I was Beverly Hills Vamp. I might have been top billed, but maybe it wasn't me. Maybe the other lady was billed first. But that was, yeah, as far as screen time, that would be right up there. It would be either that or Mob Boss, I'd say, that I got the most screen time. Because I'm usually an ensemble player, either a bit player, I'll do a cameo, or an ensemble player. But yeah, that one I started in that one, and it was fun. It was a great shoot. We filmed a lot at the beach. Mike, has Randall Badot directed after that? Did he do stuff after that?
I don't think he did.
I remember he did get it with Ron Polillo. Remember Ron Polillo, who was Rorschach on Welcome Back, Kotter? They didn't get along, though. They were like oil and water, and they were get into it on the set. For some reason, they didn't hit it off, I remember. But Linda was a joy to work with. I loved Ron. We were lifelong friends. And again, he's another of my friends who died too young. He died way too young. He was a big-time smoker, I think, died of cancer, but he was just a really good friend. I loved him so much. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, Inspector Underwear.
Inspector Underwear, yeah. Oh, yeah, Lyle Wagner was a wonderful guy, too. He just was a great guy. I've done signing shows with him. He's one of the nicest guys. We sat together on a plane. I remember coming back from a signing show, and he told me all these stories. He was up for Batman. He was against Adam West. They were the last two for Batman. And he said he just missed immortality. Adam West got it.
I mostly remember him from the Carol Burnett show.
Yes, of course. That's his legacy.
You and Linda Carriage, I mean, I think she's in every single scene that you're in that film.
Yeah, she was my girlfriend, and she was just great to work with. I love working with her. She was a knockout. She was drop dead gorgeous.
I love, again, totally off the rails, you with that umbrella hat that you're wearing. Just so many great set pieces in that movie. I'm so glad that it's now getting a little bit more recognition than it was for so many years.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's one of my better films. I like it too. Yeah, I was fond of that. That's one of my better B movies. Carol Wayne was there. I remember. I think that might have been Carol's last film. She was a little out of it at that time. He kept saying, I think she was on some kind of medicine or some bad stuff. I mean, I had my own experience with psych drugs. They're horrible, but we won't go on that tangent. But Carol was on some kind of meds or something. Mine was a little bit addled. And she goes, E.T. goes home. She kept saying that over and over when we were on the beach, I remember. But what the devil? No, I realized she was probably on some kind of med drug or something. But she was really nice. I loved her. And I loved Bruce Buzzy. She was great to work with. Eric Stoltz from Mask, remember? Eric was in there. Eric and I used to play poker together. We get together. Eric, Jeffrey, the other guy, Jeffrey Scott, me, them. I don't think Tom Villard played, but we much of us would play poker together all the time. We'd order pizza.
Poor Tom Villard. That's another one that went way too young as well.
Mike, I was thinking of, but I didn't want to depress your listeners. I've never done a podcast where I've been so reminded of the people that have died that I work with. I'm so sad.
I'm sorry to be a reminder.
I'm glad we didn't go back into we didn't touch on Grease even. Stevie and I were talking about Grease and how it had a curse on it. I don't know, is that just my movies or is that just life?
I think that's just life.
An inordinate amount of people who passed away. I don't know. These were, like every one of them that passed away, they were all cool people. It would be a better word if the people you really didn't like, the mean people, would pass away. Then you wouldn't care. But every one of these people we talked about that's died were cool. They were my friends.
I think he had a small part in Grease too as well.
Who was this?
Tom Villard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like to the point where I think his name was like Greaser Boy. So like very small part.
Yeah, it's like in Grease, this is trivia, but all the dancers had names. It's not talked about in the movie, but they were named Moose and Sauce and Sailor Boy. But every one of them were assigned a name. It was not needed, but they did. I guess it got them more in character or something.
The scene with you in $1 Million Mystery with the Murphy bed, that is a classic. I love that.
I did that scene, Mike. It was twice as long or 3 times as long. I did really some great Charlie Chaplin stuff. I did a lot of gags on that, where the bed goes up and bucks like a bronco, and I sit on it, bucks like a bronco, and I flip over. I did a lot of stuff, and Fleischer cut it way down. But apparently it still looked good. I've never seen that film. I think I was really not happy with that movie, filming it. I was really unhappy because of Richard Fleischer. The only director I didn't like.
How was it working with Tim Conway on the Dwarf stuff?
Well, God, I loved him. He's a lifelong friend, the nicest guy in the world. I loved him. Just a pleasure. He broke up at everything. He's the sweetest guy in the world. And I worked with his son, Tim Conway Jr. We did Teenage Exorcist. I think he's in that with me. But Tim was just a joy. We would talk. He was a delight. I told him he was my hero on the Carol Burnett show. When I was a kid, I loved McHale's Navy. He was always one of my heroes. He was just so nice, so sweet. And I talked to Tim Jr. about it. He said it played against me. He said, Tim was so nice, father. He said, my dad is so nice that people will take advantage of him. They'll say something, hey, can you loan me $1,000? And Tim had such a good heart, he'd give him $1,000 or whatever. But he said, Tim was so nice, people would take advantage of him. And I could see that. He just was inordinately kind, inordinately sweet.
You worked with Fred Olen Ray quite a few times. Can you tell me a little bit about your working relationship with him?
I love him. The best comedy director I've ever worked with. I love him. He's a wonderful, great guy. We did Mob Boss with Morgan Fairchild. My great story of that is I get to make out with Morgan Fairchild. We have a scene in the movie, okay, the classic gag where the nerdy guy makes out with a beautiful girl, and then the camera has the backwards head, and then he turns around and his glasses are steamed up, they're fogged up. So we're going to do that scene with me and Morgan. And we're getting ready, and Morgan goes, hey, Annie, do you want to rehearse? So I did a double take. I did my Oliver Hardy look at the camera. I'm thinking, Morgan Fairchild asked me if I want to make out with her, basically. She said, do you want to rehearse kissing? So I get to make out with Morgan Fairchild. And so we did take, he put my head to the left, to the right, straight on. And I get to make out with Morgan Fairchild. And let me tell you, she's a great kisser. She is the best kisser, Mike. I'll tell you the other story. She was the sweetest, nicest girl. All the cast, we'd all have lunch together every day. It was lunchtime, and we'd all have a catered lunch at a table. And Morgan, she was like a big star. She would have lunch alone in her dressing room. And she was so sweet. I think part of it was she was just shy. She's a very sweet, I can't tell you what a beautiful person she was. But anyway, one day she said, Eddie, do you want to have lunch with me? Being a guy, it's good for you. Oh my God, Morgan Fairchild, let's have an affair with me. I'm going to go to bed with Morgan Fairchild. But I went in, I knocked on the door. I remember clearly, I was nervous. But this is like summer of 42. I'm going out with this older woman. So I knocked on the door. She called me in. She just wanted to have lunch with somebody. We had our lunch there and we just talked. We just had lunch and we talked together for an hour, Mike. And she told me all about her life growing up. I think she grew up in Texas. But she said Warren Beatty was off coming on to her when she was like 15. She She said you could see her as Bonnie and Clyde. She's like an extra. She's in the back seat. One of the cars watched Bonnie and Clyde in the car. That said you could see her head in that. She told me all these little stories about her life. And it was the nicest lunch I ever had. She was just a delight. She was a doll. I love her.
I can't even imagine some of the, you're talking about how you're chatting with Tom Hanks and Michael J. Fox. Just the amount of people that you've met over the years is just wild.
Yeah, it's a blessed life, Mike. I've had such a blessed life. And yeah, the people I've met have been incredible. I write about them pretty much on my Facebook page. Every time one of their birthdays comes up, I'll tell a story about them. I wrote about Morgan on February 3rd, and I wrote about John Travolta, the stuff that happened with him on his birthday, February 18th. I have a couple John Travolta stories, but I pretty much, they're such cool people. There's almost always a story there. They're not bland people. You meet somebody at a Walmart and they give you your bag and you go. It's not like that. These are like magical people. These are great artists and they bring magic into the world. And that's why I have these great stories about it. Tom Hanks, he just created magic around. John Travolta, he just creates magic wherever he goes. And that's the way these guys are. They're beautiful artists. They're very special people.
It's got to be tough for you to even choose what are some of your favorite things that you've done over the years, just because you've done so many things and have made all these memories.
Yeah, the best film, I'd say, not my part in it, but the best film would be Grease. I'd say that has to be my lasting film. I wrote about it today, in fact, Mike. It's registered in the Library of Congress. It's preserved in the Library of Congress. That's why I was really proud of that. But that's the best film. Polar Express I'm proud of because working with Tom Hanks, he's my favorite star in the world. He's my all-time favorite actor. So working with him was a dream. And also, I'm Jewish, but Christmas has always been my favorite holiday. And I always wanted to do a Christmas film. It's always one on my bucket list. So I got to do a Christmas film. And Bob Zemeckis is my favorite director of all time. So I got to work with Bob. So that was special to me. So those two were my bookends. Grease was my first. And Polar Express was like the last movie I did, even though it was 19 years ago. Hopefully, Stevie and I are trying to get me back. Hopefully, when we go back to LA, maybe I'll get some more film roles. I hope. We'll see. I'm going to be 66 next week. I'm not spring chicken anymore.
When it came to Polar Express, did you just do voice? Did they do any of that motion capture stuff for you?
He did motion capture with something. Here's what it did, Mike. We come in every day, okay? We put on skin diver suits. It was the four of us. It was Tom Hanks, me, Nona Gay, and she's the beautiful, the pretty girl, the African-American girl. She's Marvin Gaye's daughter. And it was Peter Scolari, who was with Tom and with them buddies. We'd all get in skin diving suits. They would glue a rubber skin diving cap to our head. Then, Mike, they would get a marker, okay? They'd mark 152 dots on our face. Then they had these little dots. I don't know if they were electronic dots. And they would put each dot on each spot on our face. I swear to God, that's how they did it. The makeup thing was very long, was a long process. And that's how we were made up every day. And we get in there, and we would do our scene. We go, hey, Stan, I want all those presents. And Tom would talk. The four of us were pretty much together. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. The four of us were together a lot in the movie. And we did our scene. Then they had four kids. A young Tom, a young me, a young Peter, a young Nona. They were little children. One was dressed like Tom with blue, and mine was dressed in blue. Tom was dressed in yellow or whatever. And they did the same scene. They go, hey, Santa, I want all this. And they somehow would do the same motion. And Bob Zemeckis, however they did the technology, they would morph us together. So you see the kids in the movie are making the movie, but that was actually us doing it. Like you see when I fall down the train, I fell down and my glasses fell off. But somehow that was the kid did the same scene. It's morphed into a kid's body. It's some kind of process like that. Motion capture was called. That was the first film to use motion capture. Bob was always ahead of his time.
It's interesting to go back to I Want to Hold Your Hand and how he's using the Beatles, but then all those years later, he's integrating Tom with all the characters in Forrest Gump. And then it's like that was right there on the cutting edge, too.
He was pre a lot of these directors. You're right. He was pre then the other stuff he got was used in later films. Right. He thought of this stuff first. Absolutely. He was an innovator. He was an original. He still is. He's original. I love Bob Zemeckis. Everything he does. I still have to see Pinocchio. I was in the hospital. I didn't get to see Pinocchio yet, but that's one I do want to see. Tom is in it and Bob directed it, so it's got to be great.
You and Peter Scolari had worked together before. I don't know if you shared any scenes. It's been a while since I've seen the Rosebud Beach Hotel.
Oh, my God, yeah. That's one I forgot about. Like, yeah, Peter is a delight. He's like, okay, sorry, last time. He died too young. He sadly died a couple years ago. You know, God, what a sweet guy. He was the greatest guy. Yeah, Rosebud Beach Hotel, he was great. I love working with Peter. He was a doll. Just the nicest guy you could ever imagine. Who was in that one? I'm trying to remember. Besides Peter.
That was Colin Camp, Christopher Lee, who I think was in a few movies that you were in.
Christopher Lee, that's people with Christopher Lee. I love him. He's the greatest guy. I worked with him in 1941, that one and one other. He was the most wonderful gentleman. All I said, he was great. And he was just a warm, friendly guy with a great sense of humor. he belied Vincent Price. We met, me and my ex-wife met Vincent Price. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But we critically worked with him. He belied this. We played this sinister horror character in these horror movies, a lot of these gothic films. But he was a regular guy who had a great sense of humor. Anyway, I'll digress 1 minute. I think it was like the 80s. I was married for 2 years in the 80s. So yeah, it had to be somewhere between 1984 and 1986. My ex-wife Linda and I were at a fancy restaurant in Beverly Hills. We went out. That was the best part of our marriage. We go to fancy meals. That was the best part. Linda and I love to eat, so we ate a lot of good meals together. So it was a happy marriage in that way. And we had some good time together. Anyway, we're at this restaurant. We realized we're at a booth. We realized in the adjacent booth, Vincent Price is there. Oh my God. So you're trying to keep cool and eat, but I realized Vincent Price is right behind me. So we finished our meal. We turn around and go, "Hi, Mr. Price. Can I get your autograph?" "No, whatever." And he goes, "Oh, yeah." Then he's Vincent Price. I go, "Mr. Price, you are so great." And he goes, "You're in the movie." He goes, but he said that Vincent Price goes, I remember exactly. He goes, "Oh, you're good too." That's what he said. He goes, "Oh, you're good too." And I remember he pointed at me. He was the nicest guy. And he said, so that made our day. And Linda and I went out of there after having met Vincent Price. Another great one. Linda and I are walking down Hollywood Boulevard one day. This is, again, between 84 and 86. There's this big limousine parked by Frederick's of Hollywood. So you figure, obviously, this guy's going in to get his wife or his girlfriend to dress in some kind of sexy negligee or some sexy lingerie. So we're there. The guy comes up. He goes, "Do you know who's in that car? Steve Wonder." The Steve Wonder, that's like a porno star. I've never heard of Steve Wonder. It's got to be part of it. We look in the car, Stevie Wonder's in there. Now, first of all, think about it. Who would be the least celebrity you'd imagine to go to Frederick's Hollywood? Stevie Wonder, because he can't see the girl. What help with Stevie Wonder? Why would he want his girl to dress up in nylons and garter belts? But it was Stevie Wonder's car. The door was open. Now, obviously, the girl was there in picking her clothes out for whatever reason. That's a true story. Now, we look in. "Hi, Mr. Wonder. You Stevie Wonder?" "Yeah." He invites us in, Mike. He invited Liz and I in. So Liz and I are sitting in a limousine backseat with Stevie Wonder there. I swear to God. We're talking to him and all. So I finished. And what I remember most about him, he was the nicest guy in the world. And what I remember, Mike, the most is his shake, his handshake. We shook hands at the end. And it was the best handshake I ever got. It was that perfect handshake. The only one, I shook hands with President Clinton once, and those were the two best. I shook hands with a lot of the greats, but President Clinton and Stevie Wonder had the two perfect male handshakes. They weren't too hard, not too soft, not John Wayne too tough, he breaks hands, not effeminate, but just a perfect handshake. It was perfect grip. And we bid him goodbye and we left. But we met Stevie Wonder.
I love that you're still a fan, even though you've been in all of these things, that you still are like a fanboy around certain people.
I'm very starstruck. Absolutely. Yeah.
For me, like, I grew up watching your movies and you would just show up here and there and it's just, "Oh gosh, it's Eddie Deezen. I'm so excited. Just so great to see you." And now you have like all of these other generations that just know you mostly as your voice and just like showing up on Dexter's Laboratory or SpongeBob and just all of these different things. You did voice work for so many years. It's wild.
Yeah, after Polar Express, and even before Polar Express, those years were a little felt. The 80s, I worked a lot. In the late 70s and the 80s was my heyday, where I was churning them out. A lot of B movies. I was churning them out. Probably like 20 films I did. Then I got into voiceovers. War Games, I had trouble with my line. This is the genesis of it, Mike. War Games, I was having a lot of trouble. I had only the one scene, but I had to say the word data encryption algorithm. And I kept screwing up. I go, data endocrine algorithm, cut. Data endocrine algorithm, cut. Data endocrine algorithm, and I screwed up. So finally they stopped. So Marty takes me by and he goes, "Eddie, let's take a little walk." He crooks his finger at me and beckons me over. He put his arm around my shoulder. He goes, "Let's take a walk." So we go outside. He goes, "Look, you're costing the studio money." He goes, "We're going to get you idiot cards." He goes, "Idiot cards," pronouncing idiot like I'm an idiot. But he was a nice guy. But he said, "We're going to get you idiot cards." So anyway, he had these cue cards designed for me, and I read the scene. I got it in one take. I go, "We got the new data encryption algorithm." Bang, one take. I go, "This is great. You get to read off a card. Anybody can do that." So I realized that's great. I think that was my genesis of falling in love with voiceover, because voiceover, you just read your part. You don't have to memorize anything. You read your role off a piece of paper, that's all. But going back, as early as the Gong Show, I did need index cards. So even then I was having trouble with my memory. I remember I did my whole routine off index cards. So even from the earliest point in my career, I liked using cue cards. And then Polar Express, I used cue cards all the way through it. Tom, known in them, didn't use them. But I read my whole role. They had a cue card roll having these big cards like Johnny Carson. I had these cards like Bob Hope's cue cards, and I read off them.
Can you tell me a little bit about the short film that you were in, I Love You, Eddie Deezen?
Yeah, that was done by a talented girl, Sherry. What was her name? Sherry, I don't remember the last name. But she is a very sweet, talented girl. She's wonderful, and I hope she achieves all her goals. that film was good for her. I didn't necessarily get to display my stuff so much, but it was a vanity piece for me because there was my name in a film. That was cool. And she was wonderful to work with, and she's a great director. So I think she has a great future. She's so much younger than me. She has a great future ahead. But I think I only worked a day on that, if I remember. Maybe I worked 2 or 3. But she was fun to work with. And yeah, she was just really nice. She's a really nice person. I think she's on my Facebook list. I love Sherry.
You have been working so much for so many years. How did the pandemic affect you? Did you have to stop doing what you're doing? Because there's been a period of time since, I think, like 2016. I know you did one called, Bijou Mike, but otherwise, you've stopped working for a little while.
Yeah. Here's what I'm like. You can leave this in your show or not. I'll leave it up to your discretion. You seem like a nice guy, so use your discretion. I got very sick. I had heart trouble before 2020. There's a picture on my old Facebook page. In fact, I was looking at, I'm hugging this girl, and I remember even before I had my operation, I didn't know what, I was getting these vertigo spells. I didn't know. No, I was born with a heart murmur, and one of the valves had come loose. It was leaking blood into my brain. So I would get these, and I thought, what's going on? And I literally think, am I dying? It was horrible. It was a horrible period of my life. And I finally got the operation at the beginning of 2020. I had open heart surgery. Then the worst thing happened. Like, they put me on this regimen of pills, like about 20 pills. And I had my whole adult life drug-free. I'm like a Christian Scientist, no drugs at all, no meds. I didn't even take aspirin. But they put me on these 20 meds, and I started acting really crazy. That's when I started acting really weird. And then I had a stroke after that, and I got in trouble in my hometown. Sounds funny in retrospect, but it's true. I was at a Japanese restaurant, and the police were trying to throw me out. I swear to God. And the police were there. They told me to leave, and I threw plates at them. I threw plates at the cops, and they were chasing me around the restaurant. And I go, "Help, they're trying to kidnap me." Literally, it sounds like a movie. And my friend in the hospital goes, "If they still have that surveillance film, it's got to be one of the best restaurant surveillance films of all time. It's got to be a classic." But I literally say throughout. Now, the bad part, Mike, is that was assault. That's second-degree assault. When I was up for 10 years in prison, I had a good public defender, and she got me off. She got me off the hook. So now I'm serving 18 months on supervised probation. I'm serving with Stevie and his wife. Steve Joyner is the nicest guy in the world. He's my manager, and he was so kind. He took me in. Stevie's a great guy. We have fun every day. We go out to eat every day. We talk. We chat. I let him do his stuff. He's a manager of a lot of people. He's an important manager, and I let him do his stuff. But we do a lot of things together every day. So he's responsible for me being here. He's getting me podcasts. He's booking me for some signing shows. And we ultimately do want to go back to Hollywood so I can get back in the movies, or at least try. I don't want to spend the rest of my life out here. I'm happy to be. The South Carolina people are so nice. They're so wonderful. But I do want to go back to LA as my home.
I just wish you were closer to Detroit, because I'd love to have you on one of my pub trivia teams, because I know you're a huge trivia guy as well.
I think Stevie might be a trivia expert too. We do good as a team. I guess everybody has their subject. Mine is like the Beatles. I'm an expert at old-time baseball. I know certain things. I'm not around, like I know nothing about geography, nothing like that. I don't know where the Ukraine is or some stuff like that. Or I don't know, I know, where Florida is, California. I don't know where all 50 states are. I'm very ignorant in some things. You know what Mark Twain said? We're all ignorant, only in different areas. It's such a profound quote, and it's true. Nobody knows everything. We all just all know our field. Everybody's good. There's an old line, I'm paraphrasing. Every dog is good in front of his own house, and every dog is tough in front of their own house. When you've got your own stuff, you're a real expert. But when you're taken out of your field, you can look like an idiot.
I am so excited for you to get back out there. I want the world to have more Eddie Deezen, because I just always enjoy everything that you're in.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. You're very kind.
Is there a good place for people to keep up with you and your work, and for you to make any sort of feature announcements?
Okay, I'm on Facebook every day. You please look at my Facebook post. I have 5,000 friends. It's a limit, but you can always look at my Facebook page. Stevie's got me on Cameo videos. We're on a thing called Cameo. You can order a Cameo video. They cost $30, and I will say hi or whatever you want me to say. I'm like a whore. I'll say whatever I'll say happy birthday, happy bar mitzvah, have a great wedding. We've got this one real long thing, this real long dialogue. People have me say all kinds of things or whatever, or pep talks I love. Some people say, will you just give us a pep talk? And I'm good at that. Hey, Gertrude, don't read that on. I give them pep talk. So if you want to order a Cameo video, there's an easy app. You can just Google it and find the app. I'm doing a lot of those. Stevie's getting me booked on different podcasts. I think this is my 3rd or 4th. And Stevie's working on signing shows. I think Stevie's got about 2 or 3 signing shows set up for me. We've got them lined up. So hopefully, we don't have the dates right now, but yeah, hopefully soon.
Mr. Deezen, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an honor talking with you.
My pleasure. It's mutual. It's been great talking to you too, Mike. Thank you so much.